Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Carter. I call myself an inner life coach because I help women transform their lives from the inside out. I believe when we remove all the inner obstacles, everything on the outside goes much better, much more smoothly. We live from our true selves and our souls. My particular focus in coaching is helping women stop self-sabotaging so they can build the dreams and the lives that they want. And usually what's in the self-sabotage is shame, guilt, and doubt, if we're going to really boil it down. So I think it's a great fit with Dr. Amba's series here, which is just phenomenal on claiming our worth and living in abundance. So I want to kick us off today by just talking a little bit about claiming our worth, what gets in the way of that, and how we can step through it. So I'm going to share some slides as I talk. I'm a former high school teacher, and I just believe in having a visual. So we're just going to break this down really simple. This is a short 10-minute talk, and you can reach out to me if you have questions, but 3 steps to claiming your worth. And when we're talking about worth here, we're talking about inner worth, inner worth. So just take a second and reflect. How does doubting your worth impact you? Just take a second. What is it? Does it slow you down? Does it drain you of energy? Does it make you cranky and irritable? Does it make you anxious? And if you're having a tough time accessing this question, maybe a way to look at it would be, if you doubted your worth half as much as you do now, like if you could cut it in half by 50%, what would that give you? What would you have? For me, when I doubt my worth, I spin in circles. I waste a lot of energy. I almost curl up in a ball sometimes, especially if I'm trying to do something really big. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You have these new ideas you want to go after in your life. You're doing things and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it. It's so amazing, such an amazing idea. And you wake up the next day to work on it and you're like, oh, I can't do this. What was I thinking? I could never. This is for somebody else. Like, I can't possibly, if people only really knew me. You know, the doubt, the imposter syndrome, the that's for somebody else, the I don't deserve this. All of that can start flooding us. So I want to demystify what's going on in our physiology, in our brains at that moment. So these are ways that doubt can hold us back. We can procrastinate. We can spin in circles of not knowing. We can perfectionize. We might overwork, worry more. We might play it safe. We might hold back and just not try just in case. In summary, doubt just keeps us from living fully and from fully inhabiting ourselves and our lives. But I want to show you what's also possible. It is absolutely 100% possible to live from this space, from feeling empowered and centered and abundant, feeling you have inner strength that goes on for days, a sense of contentment and satisfaction, energized, a sense of trusting yourself and the universe. What we're talking about today is how to shift from this to this. And if we want to know how to do that, it's a brain job. That's what's going on. So I want to break it down just for simplicity's sake today. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you access to a worksheet where you can work this through. 3 steps to claiming your worth. So what's in the way is our brain. And we know a lot usually about how our brain is wired about physical fear. Physical fear is any threat that might harm us physically. So hand on a hot stove, we take it off. We know right away, we don't leave it on that hot stove, we take it right off. Hopefully we only did that once in our life. Hopefully we didn't do it again. So we get physical fear to stop us. Like, I probably will never bungee jump in my life because I don't think I could actually leave the bridge. My body, my brain, everything would stop me. So when we're going to step into a physically risky space, our body will go into fight, flight, or freeze. What we're a little less aware of is that we actually have an emotional fear wiring. And our brain is wired to stop us when we are do something that is emotionally risky. And emotionally risky means feeling like we might not be enough, right? How many of us have ever worried about, oh my gosh, am I enough? The answer is yes, you are. You're more than enough. But when we're vulnerable, when we're trying something new, boy, does it feel like we're not enough sometimes. So emotional fear, anytime we're going to put a toe outside of our comfort zone, we're going to do something that's new or might have an unknown outcome, our brain is actually wired to stop us. It's as if we have a Secret Service team of our own surrounding us 360 in our head and going, that's dangerous, that might not work out, that might make you look awkward like you did in high school. It'll bring up anything it can to try and stop us. Not because it hates us, because it thinks that's how it'd keep it safe. This gets wired in us by the time we're 7. So it also kind of thinks we're still a kid. And it only has one piece of advice. It's the opposite of Nike. It says, don't do it. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. There's so many ways this could go wrong. You don't know, you might look foolish, you might look worthless, people might see you're incompetent. What if somebody sees you don't know what you're talking about? All those things, because it's trying to stop us from the feeling of not being enough, which is just part of the human wiring. So how do we get around this? Well, first, one really important thing. When we get flooded with physical fear, we might freeze up physically. We might, like I said, not be able to do the bungee jump. I'm not even going to try. We're going to put that out there right now. But when we're flooded with symptoms of emotional fear, it makes us feel awful about ourselves. This is what we get flooded with when emotional fear comes up. We might feel paralyzed, we might feel shamed, we might feel overwhelmed, exhausted, out of control, confused, defeated. We might just get a completely fuzzy brain. And I don't know about you, but if this is eons of evolution, I can't think of a better way to stop me than making me feel like crap about myself. So what we want to do is change our relationships to these feelings, because these are actually not personal flaws. We tend to think of them as personal flaws. How many times I said, oh my gosh, if I can just get my act together and stop procrastinating or just feel better about myself. What's wrong? Come on, keep going. Doesn't work, first of all. One, because we're treating a symptom and not the cause. The cause is the wiring in our brain. And so, if we can shift from seeing these feelings not as personal flaws or I call them the I suck speeches, but more as a flag. Oh my gosh, fear's up. Look at that. My brain's trying to stop me. Oh, I'm feeling shame. So my go-tos, I have go-tos. I tend to feel paralysis, overwhelm, and defeat. And if I feel defeat, I tend to feel shame. And a really important thing for women, I'm sure this is going to come up, Dr. Amba, in your work this week, is the difference between shame and guilt. And so many women mistake guilt for shame, but guilt is I've done something wrong. Shame is there's something wrong with me. And that is not good for any human being in the world. So what we want to do is turn these into signals rather than self-judgment. So step 1, when you feel any of those symptoms, for me, right? Overwhelm, paralysis, shame, and defeat, don't believe them. Don't believe them. Don't believe the thoughts that are coming through your head. I can't do this. Who was I to think this? Oh my God, everyone's going to know I don't know what I'm talking about. And don't believe what they're making you feel. We know our brain lies to us. We know it so well. And yet when we're vulnerable, we forget and it gets in. So step 1, you feel those feelings. I do not believe them. I refuse to believe this. This is not true. Step 2, I want you to shift how you relate to the thoughts and feelings of emotional fear. I want you to see them as a good sign. This is a little harder, okay? It's not like I wake up on a day when I feel really defeated, right? I started my own business 2.5 years ago, and there are days when I don't want to get out of bed because it is scary and challenging and difficult sometimes. And I don't wake up on those days and I'm like, great, I feel defeated and ashamed. I see this as a gift. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is realizing that if we are experiencing self-doubt, if we are experiencing a lack of worth, it's a sign of growth. Because our brain only throws up that feeling when we're trying to do something new, when we're trying to change it. So it's actually an affirmation of your growth when you are experiencing self-doubt or lack of self-worth or lack of self-esteem. Use that as the doorway to step into something different. And then the third step is to take any step you can. With my clients, I call this press the any key. It does not matter how small it is. It could even be a thought, like I want to think about myself better. I want to tell myself, I will tell myself 3 times a day, I am worthy and lovable. I have immense worth. I have immeasurable worth. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be an actual action. It can be a thought or telling yourself something, and then acknowledge yourself for it. What this does is this breaks through the fear. The fear will lock us up. And if we put movement, it cracks it open. The second piece, acknowledging yourself of step 3, is really, really important. And on the worksheet that I am going to give out at the end of this, you'll see there's a whole page on acknowledgements. It'll explain it better. But acknowledgements are credit we give ourselves for anything we try. They're different than wins. Wins are awesome, important to celebrate. These are different than wins. This is where you really build inside that inner worth because you recognize it for yourself. It doesn't matter what other people think. It actually doesn't matter if something succeeds or fails because you get to recognize I tried it and no one can take that experience away from me. And what happens is you start to determine your worth from the inside out. And that is a different game. That is when things really start to change. So acknowledge yourself. So just as a summary, 1, don't believe what your brain is telling you or making you feel. It's lying to you. So call those lies out for what they are. 2, instead of judging yourself, oh my God, here I go again in my cycles. Oh, switch it. Look at that. Fear's up. I must be trying something new. I'm doing a good job here because my brain's lighting up. Right? 3, take any step you can, even if it's a thought about moving forward, and then acknowledge yourself. I'll tell you a little story. When I first started my business, I'm not a social media fan, as Dr. Amba has just found out again. So I really, it was a real, really way far out of my comfort zone to start social media. And I gave myself the homework for thinking about it 1 week at a time until I was comfortable enough to do it. And I wrote acknowledgement every evening. I acknowledged myself for thinking about being on social media. And I will tell you, that was an essential step in breaking down my fear of doing it. And so I could do it from a place of love and compassion and power, rather than just adrenaline. I'm just going to do it and I don't care. It's how this completely changes how we grow. And one pro tip here, no matter what happens with any of this, when you review it or when you reflect on it, start with compassion. Always look through the lens of compassion. Judgment comes from fear, and it's yes, no, black, white. We are not beings like that. We are complicated, layered, multifaceted beings. Start with compassion, give yourself compassion, look through the eyes of understanding. Then you can be honest with yourself and decide what step you want to take. But honesty without compassion is very harsh. And we want to work from a place of self-love that just doubly reaffirms all the beauty and all the worth that actually just is inside of us. There's nothing we have to do to earn it or get it or build it. It is just there. So if you want to get the worksheet, you can scan this QR code, and Dr. Amba will also put a link with this replay. So if you want a link instead to get to the worksheet, you can go there. When you get the worksheet, if you want to reach out for a free 15-minute connect, that's fine. I know the VIPs are going to get a bigger gift, but this is just a little, hey, if you want anything. But the worksheet will walk you through it step by step. And just email me if you have any questions, or just reach out. Don't hesitate. I am on a mission to help women really own fully who they are and live in the like just innate beauty and self-worth and love that they are. I think the more we do this, the more our lives, our world, everything's going to change. And it's just not necessary to stay in that place of struggle. It really isn't. So reach out to me if you have any questions. I will happily help. And I just want to thank Dr. Amba for having me on.